Futurama comic, issue 51. Leela tells the crew that to get through the way station, it needs to be 50 tons or less, and she needs to dump anything she can. A few minutes later, Fry tells Leela he launched Bender's gold-plated coffin and pirate ship anchor collection into space, and Bender's told there's no time and he has to get rid of whatever's in his hands now. So he sends the human food out the airlock. I have to assume there was literally no time for him to get rid of something better and tell her what he was holding. Leela's told she can continue her journey and thanks them, as I still wonder why there's weight limits for spaceships out in space. Leela compliments her friends on their work, and Bender gets asked to cook for them. But since he's known as a bad cook, it's actually better that he doesn't have any food for them to cook, because they won't get sick from it. And they can handle not eating for a little bit. They could also stop at a restaurant, and Bender even suggests that, making it completely forced that Fry says he'd rather have his infamously bad cooking. Leela sees the food in front of the ship and thinks the crew's gonna starve to death. How stupid is she? She was just told that they could go to a fast food place. And he's right, she did tell him to throw out their food. It's not like we were shown any better things he could throw away. Does the ship not have a tractor beam that can get their food back? They're past the way station. They don't have a giant crane that can get the food back. It cuts to several hours later where Fry's desperately hungry when he was acting normal before. I'd take this seriously if I knew how long they've gone without food at the start of the story and how long the journey is expected to be. And I'm not even told that they're going through a part of space without any restaurants nearby, which would be so easy to establish. Bender says he wasted the ketchup and mustard on finger painting his adventures with Fry, after Fry somehow considered eating engine parts. Somehow Bender keeps suggesting cannibalism for them. Leela's gonna make a delivery to Omicron Persei 8, where Lur's on a diet and ordered exercise equipment. Then after Fry somehow tries to eat stuff you can't eat from the ship, Leela stops him and delivers the package, and says she'll offer them a 10% discount in exchange for a little human food. Somehow Lur's eating and loving the taste of the inedible sandwich. Well, he is an alien, so who knows what he's made of. But it's still so ridiculous because it's a bunch of machine parts. He decides to hire Fry as his new chef for the rest of his life. At least Lur says he'll send someone back with human food for Leela's trip home. Bender tells Leela to go devise a plan for them to save Fry and says he'll wait here for the food. Then he says that he's the one they should be making the royal chef. And Fry's eating some fast food and gets told that Lur bought a Fishy Joe's franchise for Earth's tourists passing through on their vacations. And while Lur hates that kind of food, he likes the money. He says Fry will find everything he needs to prepare their feast in this box of destroyed enemy ship parts. Fry's told he'll be vaporized if he doesn't do a good job, and Leela gets given food and realizes Bender is missing and would be threatened with execution for walking around on royal property. Leela lies that she forgot he got back on the ship before the guard got here. She thanks him for the food, and she stays there eating for 20 minutes because she's so hungry and Bender's evil. Besides, he should be able to handle himself to an extent. Then some aliens carry a crate and aren't checking to see why it weighs twice as much as when they first picked it up. And Bender was magically stuck to it without being unable to get off it. He plans on screwing up what Fry's cooking. He traps Fry in the human food room without talking to him first, and gets insulted a few minutes later for what he did. Bender should have known Fry would have let him cook and take all the credit because Fry doesn't know what he's doing cooking for these aliens. So that's another plot point that's forced by poor communication skills. Why would he think he'd want the job no matter what? Then after Fry tells Lur that Bender is his assistant, we see snail aliens dining with Lur, and the Snail King says that if his kids didn't leave a trail, he'd never be able to keep up with them, which takes advantage of him being a snail. Lur's wife wishes she had kids, but Lur's infertile. Can't they adopt? And the guard's told to see why the appetizers aren't done. Fry's mad at Bender for not telling him and Leela about the jar of Vegemite in his chest the entire time. I remember hearing about how horrible Vegemite tastes from Slowflake. And even Bender, a robot with no taste in cooking, says he'd rather see Fry starve than eat that. He apologizes to Fry for getting him in this mess, and Fry serves the sandwiches. Ever since I saw the snails, I was wondering if the cooking being bad was going to be considered a good thing because Lur didn't like the visitors. And then the snails say they plan on taking over the kingdom. This is because they don't have a kingdom to rule anymore because establishing a kingdom on a planet composed of shifting tectonic plates made from puff pastry was stupid. Eventually Leela shows up saying she's giving the guard his Fishy Joe's order and then smacks him with a bag, saying this one's on the house. It'd be cooler if we saw the bag impact his face. She's thankfully asked where she got that Fishy Joe uniform and says she placed an order for Lur, and then jumped the teenager delivering it to the castle with a bag full of rocks. This explains how she was able to take out the guard. I love this attention to detail. A dumber cartoon wouldn't have explained either of this. Bender serves the bad guys an empty silver platter as a distraction and then opens his chest. But Leela can't get out and says she told him it was a stupid idea. Yeah, I thought he was just gonna let his bad cooking do the defeating. Okay, that does happen. The salt-saturated composition of Vegemite dehydrates the snails' bodies from the inside out, which takes advantage of them being snails again. So predictably, they get congratulated for saving their lives. Fry says Bender gets all the credit. Then the wife says she hates Vegemite too, and that's why she vaporized her last chef. But because she's ravenous from all this drama, Lur says they should force the chef and robot to make a stew out of the snails and Leela. The protagonists run away, and Leela apologizes to the guys she mugged and stole an order from and says the guards will pay him. I hope so. We don't see that, and Leela says she can't leave yet because she left the hover dolly behind. And then she has a dark sense of humor manic style because she was just kidding when it's not a good time for that, so she flies away safely. And the story ends with them having to go days without food on their way back home. And I'm mad at Hermes because I just remembered that he forces Leela to go on the specific routes she takes. I hope that's just a one-issue thing, because I'm guessing that would be enforced by the ship's navigation keeping track of where she goes. So the reason she complained is that she knows she can't get away with taking her own routes. There's really no reason she shouldn't be allowed to take a detour for emergency food and water, because they could barely survive 3 days without water. Hermes not letting them get water without a punishment would really be irredeemable and should be illegal. Oh good, there's another story. One story for the whole issue is exhausting. Kif gets thanked for going with Zap on a blind date, but it turns out he illegally threatened to make Kif work in the nude the rest of the week if he didn't. They go to a restaurant, and Zap loves the woman he's here for, and Kif was lied to that this would be a double blind date, but I never thought that'd be the case. They have a table for 2. On day 2, Zap's had the best night ever and is recklessly getting married to a woman he just met already. And he registered Kif for a 1-day ordination to marry him to someone, and tells them to gather the troops and order a cake. The next night, Kif's ordered to carry his bride when she's heavy. She's happy at being given a hover stroller by Amy's mother. Then Kif wonders how Diandra's already pregnant with septuplets after knowing Zap for only 3 days. No wonder she agreed to get married so fast. Maybe that's how our alien species is. But that seems scientifically impossible. So I'm guessing Zap's wrong when he thinks that's the case. After he thanks Kif for organizing the baby shower for him. He says Kif will be his nanny, and he's gonna wear a nursing girdle specially made for him to feed all the babies at once. He runs over to Kif in the hospital and puts a bunch of cigars in his mouth. And he somehow thinks the babies are his and not the guy in front of him. Then Kif's given divorce papers, and she wants half his wages and full custody. Kif tells Zap that those babies aren't his kids at all, and he says he stopped believing they were his when he was told he was only married for his money, after she was bailed on by her old boyfriend for being pregnant. Kif apologizes, and he's told that Zap gave the divorce court Kif's bank information so that Kif will lose money from child support instead of him. I'm guessing if Kif reveals this fact to anyone, he'll get fired. That was depressing. The story ends with Zap saying he's interviewing potential nannies for the babies until the divorce is finalized. Futurama comic, issue 52. Bender shows the crew a video of them on a video website dedicated to finding unknown robot talent. But while he wanted to show off the most famous dances over the past 1,000 years, all they can see is his face because Fry was too close. Because Bender said no one would want to see anything but his face. Bender is embarrassed that he posted a video exposing his physical flaws for the world to see, and my intelligence is insulted because somehow his first video is the most watched video ever instead of having just one view. Zoidberg says he likes the irony of watching a dance video where he can't see any dancing, so people might have thought it was an intentional joke. Farnsworth complains about them using his laptop, and Bender's ashamed of his appearance. So Amy says he should see her cosmetic surgeon. I guess the surgeon caters to robots too. Somehow Bender hesitates to use it at first because he thinks doing things for vanity isn't like him. Somehow people can get a free laser nose hair removal session by referring people to the surgeon a lot, when she'd missed out on a lot of money that way. She used the laser to highlight all of his problem areas, and tries to use obvious emotional manipulation to make him think he needs that much work done. He's horrified at the potential cost and wonders how he could get that kind of money. He steals all the time. Somehow Farnsworth trusted him with Kubert's college fund, so he doesn't even have to earn the money. And he turns around, and I hate how it looks because a robot's not supposed to have a backside like that. He thanks her and shakes her hand, and Wernstrom's here with the brain slug and wanted her to attach a few more growths instead of remove it. Somehow a lot of people compliment Bender on his posterior, and Hedonismbot says he wants to speak to someone about delivering a package, and invites Bender to his room. Farnsworth congratulates Bender on finally bringing in a customer, and Bender says he might be able to kick his friends to the curb and gets told off. Then he lies to Fry that a guy bet him that Fry was too stupid to write a signature, which tricks him into signing a contract on his back without reading it. So Bender gets a business loan with Fry to waste on the wrong thing. Then Hermes says Bender has to put his new appearance to good use by taking a spinning arrow sign outside to bring in more customers, and he makes Fry do it. Then Farnsworth says a shipping magazine is coming to do a profile on Planet Express because Bender has made it the #1 delivery company in the world, and they also want to do a photo shoot and put Bender on the cover. After he grossly signs an autograph with oil, out of nowhere he's told by the cosmetic surgeon that she can't do this anymore. They wouldn't do that because that'd be saying no to free money. Though him saying he's out of cash and wants a few operations for free doesn't help his case. So that makes sense. She makes a blatant lie excuse that a robot needs time to recover, and he says he's still ugly. He's told to go to a psychiatrist, and instead he plans on getting money. So he goes on a delivery mission, and the space paparazzi make it harder for the ship to leave Earth. And Bender's somehow dumb enough to interfere with Leela's piloting, and the cameras use flash photography for some reason, so the ship crashes into a screen. The paparazzi robots don't recognize Bender though and calls him Freak Show, knowing that he used cosmetic surgery to get this way. He gets bribed, and the robots try to kidnap his unconscious friends to enslave them. Bender gets thrown off the ship, and Tinny Tim calls him a monster and everyone runs away, even though we were just told that everyone can recognize a robot that got too much cosmetic surgery on sight. So they know that that's why he looks this way. So he goes to the surgeon to get her to return his appearance to normal. The robot tells Leela that they got an anonymous tip that Calculon will be arriving at the club around the corner soon. And since he hates the paparazzi, they expect Leela to get in his face with her camera. The reason they can't do is that Calculon's gonna beat up any paparazzi he sees, even though that'd be prosecuted. Maybe in the future it's legal to beat up paparazzi. The robot says they'll take photos of Leela and Fry getting hurt for money. Then one of them finds out that some celebrities have been spotted somewhere and changed their planned location for Leela. They get disappointed and find out Bender lured them to him. He releases those celebrities from his chest compartment to distract them into running after their jars, letting Fry and Leela escape. Although it's dumb of them to just stand there talking instead of talk while running away from them. Leela thanks Bender, who doesn't accept responsibility for what happened to her. He says at the pub that he realized vanity is worthless if no one recognizes them anymore. And he gets called out on for its awful behavior. In the next story, Zap gets found with one injured soldier while his entire unit is gone, but the soldier is revealed to be in a permanent coma. Really, I don't know why she's offering him a reward if they know for a fact that it's going to be permanent. Zap's confused at getting an award for heroes, implying that he instinctively knows he's a bad guy. Also, since it's the future, why would anyone remain in a coma? Why won't they just send his data to a different body, a clone of his, or otherwise instantly wake him up? He's told he'll need time to recover, during which he'll have to let every media outlet hear his story to increase enlistment. It shows him doing an interview, not remembering the name of the soldier he saved. And the story shows him making appearances on various shows that he doesn't belong on. He's filmed saving Calculon in a movie, and then he finds out that Private Carroll woke up and wants to see him, which scares him. How would anyone 1,000 years in the future think that's a permanent coma when it isn't? Lucky for him, he doesn't remember much of anything. Zap says he technically saved his life, but is hiding the truth. His conscience and Angel do some arguing, while Zap is just standing there silently in front of him and ignoring him. Zap's reminded that Carol's the one who saved his life as well, and the conscience is imagined to shoot the bad guy. Zap gets asked who he was talking to, as I'm wondering how it's in character for Zap to decide to do the right thing at his own expense. He says Carol offered to give his life for him, and we see Zap tell him to jump out and take enemy fire while he'll run the other way. So he didn't really tell him the truth. Zap lies to him while we see him smack the soldier in the head to knock him out and cover him with his body while the enemy marched by. He finds a flare and lights it in the hopes that someone would see it. So he gets the flare is why the soldier got hurt so badly. So Zap ends up telling a different story that still gets him worshipped, which is a downer ending, because he didn't deserve this. The first story was about Lure hiring Fry as a cook because he made a terrible, inedible machine sandwich, which you'd think Bender would make. And Bender goes over to help with the cooking after briefly sabotaging his meals out of jealousy. Eventually, the salty cooking with Bender's Vegemite kills the snails that were going to take over the kingdom, and the protagonists have to run back to the ship and leave in a hurry. It's not like they're simply allowed to leave without a problem because they saved Lure's life. They still had to run away, which they could have done much earlier, but were too scared to. The second story is about Zap being married really quickly for the money by a pregnant woman he met on a blind date, and he's divorced for the child support money. And sadly, there's a downer ending where Kif loses that money instead. I wish the story ended with Amy telling Kif that she'll give him money to replace the money being wrongfully taken from him every time. Kif would have less money to take her on dates, so she should do that. Instead, the story ends there, making me wonder if the writer even thought of that. It was surprisingly clever of Zap to do, but it wasn't fair of him to punish Kif, because even if he tried to stop him from marrying Diandra, he wouldn't have listened to Kif. The first story is about Bender getting addicted to trying to improve his appearance with a cosmetic surgeon, because he posted a video that shows off his physical flaws because Bender has told him to only videotape 2 parts of him. His vanity causes Leela to crash her ship, and flying paparazzi bots don't recognize them and kidnap his friends and plan on putting them in danger doing their jobs. So Bender gets himself back to normal and sends out a distraction for the bad guy so that his friends could escape. He looked pretty unsympathetic, fraudulently getting money to pay for all of those surgeries. Wouldn't it be better to see him get the money by stealing from Mom? The second story was about Zap taking credit in the media for saving a soldier's life, and somehow a bunch of people care and love him for it, even though the soldier's in a supposedly permanent coma. And you'd think 1,000 years from now people would know for a fact that it would be permanent, not be wrong about it. And it turns out Zap just cared about preserving his own life, and knocked out the soldier and hid under him to make sure the aliens wouldn't notice him, and caused his injuries with a flare in the first place, though the flare looks more like a cartoon stick of dynamite. Too bad it ends with Zap still getting positive attention by telling only some of the truth. At least he did give the soldier his heroism award. But I don't know why the stories focused on Zap would give Zap a happy ending. That's not common sense.